Our story begins with our hero Tomi. Takumi was a perfectly ordinary Japanese young man living a normal life. Suddenly, without any warning, he was transported to a completely different world. That world was filled with monsters. The first creatures he encountered were a pack of C-rank red wolves. Maya. The wolves pounced on him simultaneously, but Takumi didn't panic or flee. He grabbed his airsoft gun and fired a series of compressed air shots. Strangely, those shots easily wiped out the wolves as if they were nothing. Even though he had only been in his new world for a few hours, he adapted to this world unnaturally quickly, as if he had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. After eliminating the wolves, he collected their corpses and stored them in his inventory, and at that very moment, the truth was revealed. Takumi hadn't arrived in this world by choice. In fact, Ruler Cell had accidentally caused his death. Yes, it was literally unintentional error. Sil appeared before him and apologized for his incompetency. When Takumi still couldn't understand where he was or what was happening around him, Sil introduced himself and explained where he was. In Agachagas. Sil said he was in a legendary sector and that Sil himself was the ruler of this place. Deep down, Tomi thought this was all some new kind of deception. But Sil immediately answered his thoughts, saying there was no deception or fraud. Tomi's surprise grew even more when Sil apologized again and explained that he could read his thoughts. Sil then tried to rearrange him and explained that he wasn't doing it intentionally. The words had just slipped out by accident. Yes, by accident. Sil said he could just call him by his name, without any titles. So Takumi requested him to explain what had happened in a way he could easily understand, and then Ciel plainly and directly stated that Takumi's death had been an accident. These words fell upon him like a thunderbolt. We then returned to the present and hear Takumi explain that Ciel was attempting to repair a rift between dimensions, but he used too much power and instead of penetrating the rift, sent Takumi to another world. His life had ended at the age of 28. However, the new body he now inhabits was created specifically for him by Ciel. Ciel had reinvented him in the world he ruled. That wasn't all. Ciel also gave him knowledge about this world and several abilities that would help him survive. When Takumi opened his status window, he saw that he had already reached level 3 and that his status was highly respected. This was because he had killed 3 red wolves. While walking through the forest, lost in thought, he encountered 2 small children. They looked adorable, but the exhaustion on their faces was clearly visible. Takumi approached them, asked about their families, but they didn't respond. Their stomachs were growling loudly with hunger. Takumi remembered that Sil had kept some food in her inventory, so he took out some fruit and offered it to them. He then ate one himself and returned it to them. The 2 children then began eating with great enthusiasm. After a while, he realized they were twins, and this was painfully obvious. One was a boy and the other a girl, but both looked like street children. Suddenly, clothes appeared for Takumi, and he gave them to both children. The strange thing was that the twins became clean and neat in an instant. Takumi then told them that he wanted to leave the forest and head towards the nearby base city and asked if they would like to come with him. But they didn't answer. When Takumi checked their stats, he discovered that both were 5 years old and neither had a name. Then he made a decision and named them Ellen and Elena. He told them to come with him. In a normal situation, this would be extremely suspicious, but since this is an anime about adoption, everything perfectly naturally, even if it wasn't natural. As they traveled, Takumi noticed that the 2 children were moving easily and following him without any fatigue. This made him think that there was something strange about them. Even though they were strong, they were still children. So he decided to stop for a while and give them a rest. But suddenly the twins dashed forward. Takumi ran after them in alarm, and when he saw the enormous boars ahead, he refused to use magic so as not to accidentally hurt anyone. But he froze in astonishment when he saw the 2 children killing the monsters with their That moment, he realized they were genuinely powerful. He asked them how they knew there were monsters ahead, but they just shook their heads. Takumi told them to warn him next time before doing something like that because he was going to die from sheer fire. A little while later, the twins sensed the presence of a monster again. Takumi assumed that these children had probably lived in this forest before, which is why they were so accustomed to such an environment. This time, the children warned Takumi first, then leaped on the monster, killing it instantly. Takumi thanked them, as they had told him earlier this time, and they were extremely happy. Takumi himself felt a little embarrassed when he saw how adorable they were. This continued throughout the day. They killed every monster they encountered. When darkness began to fall, Takumi decided to prepare dinner and asked the twins for help. In a single moment, they gathered a huge amount of firewood while Takumi prepared some scars. As they ate, Takumi remembered how withdrawn the children were initially. Now they were laughing and speaking freely. This made him wonder if they had already become attached to him. At night, he set up a protective barrier and everyone went to sleep. The next day, when they arrived in the city, the guards were surprised to learn that the three had come from the Gao forest, an A-rank forest and extremely dangerous. The sight of a man and two children emerging from that dangerous forest naturally aroused suspicion. Takumi explained to the guards that he had come from the countryside to look for medicinal herbs. He hadn't ventured deep into the forest, and the children knew how to defend themselves. A red-headed guard asked if he had found any herbs. Takumi took them out and showed them, and the guard confirmed they were indeed medicinal herbs. Pleased, the guard asked Takumi for his identification card. Takumi hesitantly replied that he was from a rural area and didn't have any. The guard then took him in for an inspection. He had him fill out several papers and then asked him to place his hand on a crystal to confirm he had no criminal record. Even though Takumi had done nothing wrong, he felt a little tense. Fortunately, there were no problems, especially since he still didn't fully understand the twin situation. The guard gave them temporary cards and said that if they wanted to stay longer, it would be better to get official cards. He then smiled at the children, but they were frightened by the smile. A little while later, as they walked through the city, the twins were obviously looking around with fear. After some time, they entered the church. Takumi told the children to wait a while. He then went to the altar to contact Sil. Sil asked how everything was going in the new world. Takumi told her about the twins, how he found them in the forest and how he couldn't leave them alone, so he brought them with him. But he couldn't care for them alone, so he intended to send them to an orphanage. As soon as Takumi said this, tension clearly appeared on Sil's face, and she immediately told him not to talk like that. Takumi gently replied that he had always suspected Sil was connected to everything because, instead of sending him to a safe and peaceful place, he sent him to an extremely dangerous A-rank forest where he found the twins. Even stranger, the monsters there couldn't defeat them. Sil apologized again, but Takumi asked for a clear and direct explanation. Unfortunately, Sil said he couldn't say anything more. This suggests that there isn't just one ruler in this world, ruler of wind, ruler of fire, ruler of water, and ruler of earth. Takumi connected the pieces and said that if the ruler of wind can't speak frankly, then the twins must be related to another ruler. Sil smiled and admitted that Takumi was extremely intelligent, and Sil then explained that the twins weren't ordinary children and leaving them in the forest was extremely dangerous. But he couldn't say more. Takumi didn't press further questions, but he did ask something important. Could he continue dealing with the twins and look after them? Ciel replied that it would be a tremendous service for him, as if fate itself were giving him a chance to correct his mistake of causing Takumi's death by accident. Before ending the conversation, Takumi admitted that he was never really going to leave the twins in their prime. After finishing his conversation with Ciel, he returned to the children and said that they should go to the inn and get some proper rest. Ciel was incredibly happy, having found someone kind-hearted and sincere enough to shoulder his responsibilities. When they arrived, Takumi asked the two children to try the bed. They were absolutely fascinated by the idea of the bed itself. It was as if they were seeing a real bed for the first time, and just moments later they fell asleep, almost immediately from the shared exhaust. Tomi too felt drowsy after the long day's events. The next day, when they woke up, Takumi saw the twins sitting quietly and looking at him. He said good morning to them, and when they responded, he was genuinely surprised, as this was the first time he had heard their voices. Previously, he had been nervous about their silence, but now that they had started speaking was a major step and a relief. Without realizing it, he pulled them into a gentle embrace. After a while, they decided to head to the Adventurers Guild. Upon reaching the guild, they found the receptionist, Luna. Takumi explained that he wanted to register as an adventurer and wanted to register both children with him. Luna was a little surprised and explained that there was no minimum age for registration. But taking children to the battlefield is extremely dangerous. Still, Takumi insisted on his request, and Luna enthusiastically handed over the registration form. After completing the procedures, they began to explore the area. There was some tension among the twin crowd and the unfamiliar faces, but Takumi reassured them that there was nothing to worry about. A little while later, Luna brought the cards to them and explained that these cards also serve as identification. Tomi looked at his card and noticed that he had reached level 11. The card also stated that he was human, which piqued his curiosity. Luna then began to explain the guild system. She explained that ranks start at F for beginners and go up to S, which is considered the rank of heroes. There is also a higher rank called SSS, but that's an extremely special rank never reached in the guild's entire history. He also explained that quests can be completed individually or in groups, and a party's is determined by the average rank of its members. If they wish to take on the task, they must select a quest from reception and complete the required procedures. After thanking them, Takumi requested that they register them as a party. Luna asked for a name, so Takumi thought for a moment, and since their lives were somehow connected to the rulers, he thought the name Eggs would be fitting. He suggested the name, and Luna officially registered the party. They then went to the notice board and began choosing their first quest. They settled on a mission to gather medicinal herbs. Luna explained that they had 3 days to complete the quest, and thus began the party's first real mission. As they walked along the road, they found a slime, and the twins immediately began innocently playing with it as if it were a toy and not a monster. A little while later, Takumi found a medicinal herb, and he explained its appearance in detail to the twins so they could identify it, and also told them how to collect it without damaging it. To their surprise, the twins collected an enormous quantity of herbs in a very short time. When they returned to the guild, Luna was stunned by the amount they had gathered in just half a day. Takumi remarked that the children had put in a tremendous effort. Luna, after confirming the quality of the herbs, rewarded them. Takumi sincerely thanked the twins, believing they had truly completed the quest. Suddenly, an irritated man appeared and mockingly asked what some little children were doing inside the guild. The twins immediately hid behind Takumi. Takumi stepped forward and stood in front of the bold man. He said the children were with him, and if there was a problem, he should tell them plainly. The man angrily replied that the guild wasn't a place for children to play. Hiro calmly replied that the twins were behaving properly and weren't bothering anyone. But the man shouted, saying their mere presence was annoying him. Luckily, Luna intervened and tried to calm the situation down. The man became even more aggressive. In the blink of an eye, the twins lunged forward and kicked him twice in succession. Hiro panicked and yelled for them to stop immediately to prevent further escalation. When the situation calmed down, Hiro awkwardly asked Luna if they would face any punishment. But Luna reassured him, saying that what happened was self-defense, so there was no problem. At that very moment, the red-haired man, who had previously appeared at the city gate, arrived and asked what had happened. At that very moment, the other adventurers were dragging the bold man's body out of the guild. Luna whispered into Hiro's ear and told him that the twins were crying. Hiro immediately rushed to them and asked if they were okay. As they wept, they begged him not to leave them. It was a very touching scene, and Hiro realized how attached the twins had become to him. Hiro remembered that he might have raised his voice a little at them. So he quickly reassured them, telling them that he would never leave them and that they had nothing to worry about. He then told the whole story to the red-haired man. He introduced himself and said his name was Grunel, Robin, the vice commander of Chiron headquarters. Hiro told him that the children thought he would abandon them. Robin was deeply saddened by this and asked if he could ever do that. Hiro was a little angry at this question and immediately replied that he could never do that. Yet he was truly confused and couldn't understand why the twins felt that way, as it hadn't been long since they'd met. Robin looked at him and asked if they were his children. Hiro shook his head in denial and then began explaining that he had first met them in Garia Forest. He said he didn't know if they were lost or absent, but he couldn't leave them alone in that dangerous place. He then asked if any cat or Kara had been attacked in the forest recently. Luna immediately remembered an old incident. She explained that slave traders had been attacked in the forest, and they might have thrown the children to distract the monsters so they could escape. This clarified everything. Hiro asked Robin if it would be a problem if he formally adopted the twins. Robin, seeing how deeply attached the children were to Hiro, said no problem. He even promised to use his position as vice commander to have their guardianship legally recognized and tokenized in Takumi's name. Hiro thanked him. But before their conversation could continue, Luna interrupted. Luna asked Hiro if he had been to Goth Forest, as she was very interested in the materials coming from the monsters there. Hiro told her that he had some materials from the Red Wolves. Luna was surprised and asked for them. At that moment, a man named Wall arrived and suggested Hiro sell them, as Luna was very interested in such materials. Hiro agreed, sold the materials, and received a substantial sum of money. Luna then turned to Robin, asked if he wasn't going to talk to the guildmaster. Robin replied that the guildmaster would have to discuss the expedition campaign. Such expeditions are organized periodically to keep the monster population in the forests low. If they are allowed to grow unchecked, they will venture out of their territory and threaten the cities. Because the forest was ranked, the expedition would be small in number but overwhelming in strength. Then Robin looked at Hiro and said that he would also join the expedition. Hiro was surprised and asked why, since he was only a beginner adventurer. But Wall intervened and said, "Stop talking nonsense, because you brought this situation upon yourself by claiming the Red Wolves had materials." Hiro realized that he should have remained calm and had chosen his words more carefully. Then Wall went to speak with the guildmaster, and as he left, told Hiro not to try to escape, as he was about to submit an official request to be added to the expedition. Hiro thought he had gotten himself into serious trouble, but his thoughts were suddenly cut off when he saw the twins trying to eat the coins. Hiro immediately ran to them and stopped them to prevent anything bad from happening. A short while later, Wall met with the guildmaster to organize adventurers for the expedition and recommended that adventurer Takumi be included among them. Some time later, we see Hiro walking peacefully through the city streets with the twins. Although it hadn't even been a full month since they arrived in the new world, he had already adapted quite well. Speaking of the two children, they were initially afraid of strangers, but now they had calmed down and adjusted to their new life. Their party, named Eggs, followed a 2-day work, 1-day rest regimen to maintain their energy. One day, while eating breakfast, Hiro remarked that the food was delicious, but he felt something was missing. Because he was Japanese, a meal without soy sauce felt incomplete to him. After a moment of thought, he remembered that there were only 3 types of bread in this world: white bread, barley bread, and whole wheat bread. Then he began to miss the old, decorated breads and sweets and decided to make his own. The twins were excited by the idea and decided to go to a nearby bakery. As soon as they entered, the baker asked what they wanted. Hiro said he wasn't there to buy anything, but to ask for a small favor. Just then, the bakery owner came in and asked what was going on. His daughter Michelle told her that Takumi wanted to ask for a favor. The baker's name was Red. Hiro introduced himself and said he wanted to try making a special kind of bread with some ingredients he had. Michelle noticed that one ingredient was jam, while the other seemed unfamiliar to her. Then Hiro explained that it was pastry cream and it had to be placed inside the bread and put in the oven. Red didn't mind experimenting, but he admitted he had never made such bread before. So Hiro decided to teach him the step-by-step method. Soon Hiro pretended to be a baker himself, making bread in front of them so they could learn the method. Red imitated him and performed very well. Ellen and Elena also became excited and began to participate, and Red told Hiro he needed to help. So Hiro took out some anko to make another kind of bread. They spent the entire day and part of the night making different varieties. When they finished, they waited for the bread to come out of the oven. When the bread was ready and they tasted it, Rad and Michelle were completely amazed by its flavor. They then asked Hiro if they could sell this kind of bread at the bakery, saying they would tell customers that the recipe was Hiro's. They even offered a commission. But Hiro politely declined, saying he didn't need money. He just needed to buy it from them whenever he wanted. In truth, his attitude wasn't exactly business-minded. Rad said he was excited to try new flavors and different varieties. Ellen and Elena loved the taste and said they wanted to eat a lot of it. The next day, Luna welcomed Hiro to the guild with a smile and congratulated him on his promotion. The hero thought he might have just progressed a little. But when he saw that he had reached level 13 and had also acquired some strange skills like eldery and sewing, he was surprised. To be honest, even he found these skills a bit odd. But he couldn't deny how useful they were in daily life. Luna congratulated him and said that for a beginner adventurer he was progressing at an unnaturally rapid pace. She also praised the twins, saying that it was clearly visible that they were working hard and diligently. Then she asked if he had ever thought about visiting a dungeon. The hero immediately remembered the information Syl had given him about 108 dungeons scattered across different locations in this world. Luna explained that Cylon has a famous dungeon with 15 floors, and because the number of monsters around the city is low, many adventurers go there to level up quickly. The hero thought for a while, then told the twins they could go there and explore. But Luna warned him that the dungeon was relatively nearby. It would still take half a day of walking to reach it, and exploring it could take several days. The hero reassured her, saying he just wanted to go there and see the place and explore a bit. Luna was relieved, as she clearly assumed the hero would clear the entire dungeon on his first visit. But to his surprise, the hero and the twins quickly reached the 3rd floor of the dungeon. This was possible thanks to Alan and Elena, who possessed an astonishing sense of direction and were guiding the hero. As they progressed, the hero noticed that it was an earth dungeon, meaning most of the monsters were of the earth element Erike. They encountered a giant mole-like monster, but it seemed relatively weak. The hero told the twins to handle it, but before he could even speak, they easily killed it. The monster vanished upon defeat, leaving behind loot. The hero explained that monsters in dungeons disappear upon death, leaving behind loot, and sometimes these drops can be rare or valuable. The twins searched the area and found that Mole had only left a whisker. So smiling, they moved on. After a while, the hero decided it was time for a break and should prepare dinner. He summoned a magical tool, essentially a stove. The scene was strange, but it was clear that his abilities allowed him to summon different tools with ease. The meal was soon ready, and the twins felt delighted. After eating, they slept peacefully within the protective barrier that secured the area around them. Once they had had enough rest, they resumed their journey, defeating whatever monsters they encountered. They continued in this pattern of fighting, eating, and resting, until they reached the 10th floor, where they found a secret room containing a treasure chest. The hero told them that such chests could contain valuable treasures, but could just as easily be dangerous traps. So he decided to inspect the first chest himself. Once he was sure it was safe, he let the twins open it tightly. Inside, they found 2 potions, one for mana recovery and one for healing. The loot was simple enough, but at that moment a huge monster appeared behind them, and with a synchronized double strike. The twins killed it with astonishing speed. After the battle, the hero obtained a wild ape hide, and the twins became excited, thinking it could be highly valuable. The hero was slowly noticing that the twins possessed extraordinary abilities, whether in combat or in sensing their surroundings. They moved forward fearlessly, and any monster they encountered was almost automatically defeated. This relieved Hero that he hadn't fallen into the hands of the bad guys. Perhaps this was why Cell had been so concerned about them from the beginning. Yet sometimes Hero felt he was starting to rely on them too much. While he was lost in thought, the twins called out to him, warning him of a nearby monster. When he looked up, it was the poisonous mud serpent. He waved to the twins and told them to let him handle the monster. This time Hero picked up a stone and threw it at the serpent to distract it. Then, using cutting wind, he swiftly killed it. Soon after, a swarm of beasts arrived. The twins became very excited and asked for permission to fight them. Hero agreed, giving them a chance. Initially, their strikes were not precise, but they copied the hero's method and began throwing stones, and in that moment, their power was revealed in a frightening way. The hero was delighted to see them enjoying themselves, so he let them fight freely while he sat down and arranged his belongings. When the twins defeated the bees, they collected the honey left by the monsters and gave it to the hero. Seeing the honey, the hero became very excited and said that honey is considered one of the most expensive materials in Ethelia. From that moment, the twins chased every bee they found. After finishing the hunt, the hero made French toast for them. The twins were overjoyed. But suddenly another swarm of bees appeared. This time the hero had to handle them himself. As their numbers increased, the twins also joined the battle and started helping. Eventually, they collected an enormous amount of honey. They then continued advancing through the dungeon until they finally reached the 15th floor. The moment they opened the massive door and entered, they found themselves in a vast hall. But as soon as they stepped inside, the door closed behind them, revealing a massive monster, a jointed earthworm. The hero immediately realized they wouldn't be able to escape this place until they defeated it. So he told the twins to stay somewhere safe while he handled the battle himself. The worm tried to dodge his wind attacks and launched mud balls, but the hero easily parried those attacks, Then he fired a straight wind arrow, ending the battle quickly. After the battle was over, he stood there a little bewildered, asking himself, was the monster really that weak, or has the blessings made the hero himself stronger? As he began gathering the loot, the monster had left behind a large number of items. At that very moment, the twins clung to his feet and softly asked, "Finished?" The hero smiled and said, "Yes, I'm glad you're safe." Then suddenly they pulled him towards them and patted his head as if thanking him. The hero's face turned red and he asked in surprise, "Are you praising me?" They said yes, and his heart was filled with warmth and gratitude. Then a special device appeared, taking them back to the first floor of the dungeon. It also contained an extra treasure chest. When he opened it, they found fire bombs inside. Bombs that exploded when charged with magic, requiring the thrower to be far away. The hero thought they were like grenades, and when he saw the twins trying to play with them, he became very alarmed. So he quickly snatched them away and explained that they were extremely dangerous. As soon as they touched the transfer orb, they immediately rushed out of the dungeon. The hero told them it was time to return to the city. On the way, the twins suddenly pointed to a dog standing in the distance. But that dog was no ordinary dog. It was a fencer. The hero examined the beast and was astonished. He discovered it was a level 25 S-rank Fenrir, and even more strangely, there was a contract between it and the hero. The hero was astonished as to how such a contract could have been made, and immediately remembered that Syl must have done it without informing him. As soon as he gestured towards it, it ran straight towards him. The hero noticed Fenrir looking at him, waiting for something, so he lovingly patted it on the head. Then the twins ran around it, surrounding it, saying they should definitely give it a name. The hero asked them what they thought and then suggested the name Joyal. The twins were very excited and said they loved the name. After a long time, they finally reached the city. The hero told the twins that they couldn't take Joy-El with them into the city because ordinary people would be scared by the sight of a monster. So he decided to hide it in his shadows, explaining that monster contracts were a form of dark magic. Therefore, the contracted beast can hide and disappear. A little while later, the hero met Ciel and asked him about contracts and magical beasts. Ciel initially understood, but when the hero clarified that he was talking about Joel, Ciel became a little uncomfortable and changed the subject. Then he remembered that Fenrir was sent by the ruler of water, and Ciel himself wanted to be the first to welcome the beast. So he decided to summon another beast for the hero. No. The hero interrupted him and asked directly what he meant by family of the ruler of water. Ciel replied that it meant exactly that. The family of the ruler of waters, Joel, is a token of gratitude along with some other items. Ciel then handed the items to the hero all at once. The hero saw that the twins appeared to be compatible with the water element. When he opened his inventory, he was astonished by everything Ciel had sent. So the hero reluctantly accepted, having no other choice. They fell asleep exhausted that night. The next day, when they arrived at the location, Ciel had indicated, a huge tiger and a giant bird were waiting for them. Hero smiled when he saw such careful preparation and realized Ciel hadn't been careless when sending the Crutchers. Tiger was a celestial tiger, a level 25 S-rank creature. It could control the air element and dart through the sky at astonishing speeds. Its appearance was majestic. Bird was a Thunderhawk, a level 20 A-rank creature. It controlled lightning and specialized in swift and sudden attacks. The twins had a great interest in names. After some thought, Hero decided to name Tiger Heat and Bird Bolt. Ciel had also sent magical collars that allowed Joel and Heat to appear in tiny chibi forms, so they could follow them without drawing attention. The twins were very excited and asked for collars for themselves, but Hero felt it wasn't appropriate. No matter how adorable they were still children. So among the items sent by the ruler of water, she found safe pendants with the 4 symbols of tracking, resistance, and magical reinforcement, ensuring the twins' safety. They also had magical bags in which they could store all their belongings. Now they were ready to continue their adventure in comfort. We then see them wandering around the city until the twins stopped by a toy store and were mesmerized by everything inside. When they went inside, Elena chose some really cute hair ties, and, as if that wasn't enough, she also chose black ones so they would match Hero's complexion. So they would match. Hero nearly fainted from how adorable he looked in that scene. Then came an even bolder scene. The woman working at the store asked the twins to try on some of the clothes on display. It was a pretty clever move, to be honest. Because the twins looked so unbelievably adorable in the sample clothes, Hero bought them several outfits. That night, Hero sat thinking about getting a special gift for Elaine, but he wasn't sure what to choose because the things she would have liked didn't exist in this world. So the matter was postponed for a while. The next day, it was time for their first official monster hunting mission inside the Gaia forest. They prepared well, had breakfast, and then went to meet Knight. There, Robin introduced them to Vice Commander Isaac Rayner. Isaac felt a little uneasy when he saw 2 young children ready to venture into the dangers of the forest. But Robin reassured him, telling him that the twins were stronger than they appeared and that the rulers were literally protecting them, so he should worry about himself. Robin then told them that they would travel to the forest by transport carriage. But something strange began to happen when the hero felt someone watching them with an unsettling and peculiar gaze. Elaine and Elena also sensed it. Although their intuition wasn't particularly strong at that moment, the feeling was real. The hero couldn't decide whether the gaze was hostile or simply curious. So he decided to remain alert and continue the journey, trying to identify the source of the feeling. When they reached the forest, Robin announced their plan. They would stay there for 5 days and begin a hunting mission. Then they began looking for a suitable place to set up camp and became a little acquainted with the other adventurers. They were ordinary-looking people who didn't seem very powerful. Blot Rudolph, a girl with twin braids named Iris, a man named Joe, and another man. They then began exploring the area and everything seemed normal until the twins sensed an enemy approaching from the north. Gil had the detection ability. Still, he only noticed the enemy after a while, which made it clear how superior the twins' sensory abilities were. The enemy was a powerful red wolf. Before Night could launch an attack, the twins rushed towards him and, with incredible speed, finished him off as if he were playing with a ball. When Hiro saw this, he panicked, having forgotten that the plan for the day was to move quietly and without attracting attention, indeed. But it was too late, especially since the knights watched in horror as the twins dragged the monster's cops like toys. Hiro tried to ease the tension, suggesting that others do some of the movement and fighting. But Robin quickly realized the defeated wolf was a C rank and said that while he knew the twins were talented, he never expected them to carry an entire team. Hiro had no choice but to explain that the twins had lived in the forest for a long time. That's why they'd become so skilled in navigation and handling. And indeed, everyone started following the twins while they were gathering important plants and materials. On Hiro's advice, Elaine and Elena also left the monster, killing the others, allowing the team to lead the battle against Ox's group. And Haroy and Robin seized the opportunity and confirmed that Hiro wasn't just an E-rank adventurer, so he asked Rudolph to recommend a rank evaluation test for Hiro as soon as they returned to the city. But the biggest surprise was that Ox shouldn't have attacked in groups and enemies shouldn't have appeared in this area of the forest, which made everyone suspect something was wrong. Suddenly, a red flare appeared in the sky, signaling that one of the other two units was in danger. Time was crucial, so Hiro quickly reached the location using the power of the wind and found Night surrounded by a pack of red wolves. Without hesitation, she and her team swiftly wiped them out. When they returned to the others, the atmosphere returned to joking and laughter until they felt that strange gaze again. But this time it was closer. That night, the hero was shocked when he saw the dinner the adventurers had prepared. It was just meat and vegetable soup, nothing more. It was enough to satisfy hunger, but far from what the hero had imagined. So he asked why Eris wasn't preparing a proper meal, but the team explained that her cooking was the worst, and that letting her near the kitchen could lead to poisoning. This left the hero momentarily in disbelief, and he wondered how it was possible that all women couldn't cook well. He then provided instructions so they could prepare a respectable dinner. The next day, the hero again felt someone watching him, and as time passed, the forest became even more strange as they encountered almost no monsters all day. Things continued like this until suddenly they encountered a gigantic evil serpent that withstood every physical and magical attack. The hero immediately realized that this enemy was genuine danger, so he told Elaine and Elena to keep their distance, while he and the warriors tried to attack it, but to no avail. At that very moment, the hero again felt the hostile gaze specifically focused on him. It shattered his concentration. The twins tried to intervene, but the monster struck them with a violent blow and blew them away. The situation was truly dangerous because two of the world's smallest and strongest beings were now lying on the ground. At that point, the hero lost all his composure, overcome with pure fear and rage, as someone's murderous intent and his own fault had caused the twins Okwetsu injuries. All the anger in his heart gathered in that moment, and he decided to use advanced wind magic. Naturally, he couldn't execute it himself, so he asked Rudolph and the others to distract the gigantic serpent while he charged up the attack. The adventurers used all their strength to buy him time, and when the hero felt everything was ready, he told them to retreat, but then he unleashed a storm of hundreds of small wind-based attacks that not only killed the serpent but also destroyed a large portion of the forest. Robin said he had never seen magic with such overwhelming power, but the problem wasn't over yet. Although the twins' wands had improved, the hero had finally identified the source of those strange stares. With complete resolve, he charged towards the person responsible, a purple-haired knight named Sagi. He pinned him down with his sword and demanded answers. Robin was at a loss, and Sagi wasn't either. But Hiro asked him why. He was looking at him with bloodlust-filled eyes. Rudolph confirmed, having noticed the same look. So they pressed on until Sagisi finally admitted that jealousy was the reason Hiro had gained Robin's respect so quickly. At that point, Hiro understood that Sagi admired his commander. But the matter seemed a little more complicated because Sagisi was also infatuated with the red-headed man, and therefore jealousy was the type who was more driven to manipulate feelings. A sequence of embarrassments followed, numerous jokes, Robin's absolute rejection, broken hearts, and ultimately, the matter didn't go any further. Afterward, they had a pleasant dinner. Then the hero checked his stats and noticed that he had reached level 25 and had 50 points in water magic, Ahanatemic. This surprised him greatly. He thought it might be another gift from Syl, but that thought was quickly put aside when they decided to end the mission and return to town to treat the injured. The next day, Takumi met with the guild master of the Adventurers Guild, a man named Jan. He had received reports from Robin and Rudolph, and both insisted that Takumi be promoted. On the one hand, this seemed like a good idea, and they wanted to promote the twins as well. But the problem was that such a promotion would lead to more difficult quests and increased danger. After much thought, Takumi flatly stated that the twins should only be promoted to D rank for now, so that they could complete quests between C rank and B rank relatively safely. Luna then updated their cards and asked them to hand over all the loot they had collected during their previous adventure. Luna was very excited about this. We then see Takumi hanging out with his extended family and having fun. The twins were doing childish things, like making funny faces and trying to teach Joe how to speak. To be honest, it might sound strange, but since both of them were extremely talented, it wasn't entirely impossible that Joe would one day actually learn to speak. After a while, Takumi thought that if the twins were going to be adventurers, they should also learn to manage money. So he explained everything they needed to know. After a few examples, the twins got ready to go to the market and started buying some things. All the merchants were amazed by their intelligence. Finally, they reached the library. Takumi went straight to the magic section and found a wonderful book that would help him begin developing his abilities with the water element. The twins asked, "What is this book?" And while he tried to explain, elderly and curious woman listened. She decided to take the plunge and gifted them a set of illustrated books, perfect for learning to read. To be honest, Takumi was starting to think long-term, and in hindsight, it could one day elevate the twins to the level of space engineers. The next day, they continued taking guild requests and chose a small mission, finding a lost cat. Takumi summoned his familiars, hoping they would be helpful. After hours of searching, the twins insisted on continuing and finally found the cat. It was small, cute, and very nimble. They then returned it to its owner. This excited the twins even more, wanting to keep searching. But Luna informed them that only one quest was available, eliminating the goblins in a nearby village, as no adventurer was willing to take it due to the small reward board. Takumi saw it as a good opportunity to develop their skills, so he immediately agreed, and they arrived at the village. When the village chief first saw them, he doubted whether they would be of any use. His reaction was understandable. Imagine there's an emergency on your farm. Every day, hordes of goblins come and destroy everything. You're waiting for the army, and suddenly you're faced with just one man and 2 children. Luckily, Takumi realized the first impression wasn't good. So he immediately showed his identification card and revealed his rank. He then stepped forward and released a beast, or rather, allowed the twins to attack all the enemies with their familiars. The twins truly wreaked havoc, all the movement and bloodshed, but their cute appearance made the scene feel strangely endearing. What was even more surprising was that the familiars could communicate telepathically. Takumi saw a thin trail of smoke and knew a small fire had broken out in the battle. So he seized the opportunity and tried what he had learned from his water magic book. He started with something simple, a water ball, but his execution wasn't perfect, so he needed some help, even though he didn't immediately agree. After a while, Elaine and Elena lovingly reassured him and gently patted his head. They then said goodbye to the villagers and returned to the guild to collect their reward. That night, the twins asked Takumi to read them a book about fish, and that moment, he realized that although the twins were very powerful, they had never ventured beyond the boundaries of the places they knew. Just a forest town and a few nearby places. The next day, they decided to embark on a journey around the world, and their first destination was a coastal town in the south. They then bid farewell to everyone they had met on their recent adventures, such as Robin, Isaac, Baker, and Luna. Luna was very sad and asked them to return soon. For a moment, Takumi thought she might like him and be waiting for his return, and he thought she might be like the sweetheart he left behind in his homeland. This made his face turn red with embarrassment. But the reality was that what she was missing were the rare materials they had found. They then went to the baker's, met the shop girl, and then Syl, who seemed extremely excited about their trip and said he would wait for them at the other temple. But suddenly, an ugly old man stopped them and declared that the children were his. Unfortunately, there was some truth to his words, as we were shown a flashback to the past. He was carrying the slave children in a carriage. When he found the monsters, he left the twins in the forest as beds and fled. Takumi had never intended to listen to him, but the twins' fear confirmed to him that the old man was telling the truth and that he was a completely vile person. The twins didn't need to explain the details. Takumi understood that the man's selfishness had left them alone in the forest without any protection, and it was clear at that point that the monsters were the ones who should be afraid of the twins. But that didn't change the fact that they had endured a terrible experience one no child should ever have to endure. Furthermore, the old man was extremely disgusting and deceitful, and it couldn't be ignored that he was enslaving people. The problem was that in this world, slavery, as in most fantasy worlds, was considered completely normal and socially accepted, and was proven by a binding spell, a kind of contract between master and servant. Fortunately, the twins had no such mark, so the man had no way to prove his claim, and Takumi was under no obligation to listen to or believe him. Still, the old man persisted and repeated. This enraged Takumi so much that he considered putting him to sleep forever. As his anger rose, he tried to calm himself down. Just then, Robin and Isaac arrived and stood by him. They laid out all the evidence on the table. Takumi was the twins' true guardian. There was no binding spell mark on the twins, and the vile old man's intentions were clearly evil. So he was taken away and arrested on charges of attempted kidnapping, a punishment that could potentially cost him his life. Takumi then told the twins that he would stay with them and protect them for as long as they wanted. The twins embraced him with such joy, and for the first time they were truly filled with joy because they now had someone to trust. Once this problem was resolved, they finally prepared to begin their journey. A journey filled with battles, monsters, and delicious food. After several days, they reached the sea. Ellen and Elena were overjoyed. While Takumi was reflecting on his time in this new world, he realized he had only been there for 2 months. Yet those 2 months were the happiest of his life, because every day, no matter how simple it seemed, became a new adventure when he spent it with the twins. Things get even more exciting when they meet a young mermaid named Melina. She suddenly recognizes him and asks if he is the Takumi rumored to be around. He confirms that he is. He then wonders how she knows his name. Molina explains that she heard about him from one of the servants of the ruler of water. She also reveals that she had heard about the twins and that she hadn't come to this place by chance, but had been searching for them because people were talking about their strength, and she wanted to ask them for help with a problem in her village. Takumi says they're not that strong, though deep down, he doesn't fully believe it. Molina persuades him to at least go to the village and see the mermaid world. And once he understands the problem, decide for himself whether he can help. The problem is that the mermaid village is underwater, and Takumi can't swim. So Molina gives them special bracelets that allow them to breathe without difficulty. As they enter the sea, the twins demonstrate remarkable skill and movement, and when they encounter the first sea monsters, they easily defeat them. When they reach Molina's village, she tells them that the problem is a recently sunken ship that is now blocking the entrance to a cave where they cultivate coral. The ship was too large, and they didn't have the tools or the people to move it. So Molina asks if they can help. Takumi looks at the ship and wonders what a strange situation he's found himself in. But it's actually quite simple, as he can store the ship in his inventory with just a touch. Seeing this ability, Molina trembles with surprise. If she had legs, they would be shaking. She simply thanks them and invites them to meet the High Priestess who protects the village. They have to go through a huge palace to reach her, and this is where the really exciting part begins. When they arrive before the priestess, they find a blue-haired mermaid calling out their names, a clear sign that she was expecting them. The young woman was so beautiful that both Takumi and the twins were astonished. As soon as Takumi saw her, he felt she looked like a princess, while the twins stood mesmerized by her beauty. Takumi seized the opportunity and thanked them for their warm welcome. But she says she should thank him because she's heard about him from the ruler of water's followers, who call him their savior. An obvious question arises: who is that attendant who's being repeatedly mentioned? At some point, suspicions almost point to Priestess. Takumi is also puzzled and can't understand what the person might have said about him. So he asks if many people know about his accomplishments, as he feels a little uneasy that news is spreading and more people are learning about his identity, the people he hangs out with, and their strengths. Priestess reasserts him that very few people know such things. Molina then explains all the details of the ship and how Takumi saved them, making him a true savior in their eyes. Later, they meet Gato, who governs the place together with Priestess. As mayor, Tedious handles political and administrative matters while she communicates with the rulers through her supreme magical power. And frankly, all they can do for him is reward him for what he's done. So Priestess tells him to ask for whatever he wants. Takumi's face turns red with embarrassment, and no one knows what's going through his mind at that moment. He then remembers all his failed attempts, including the one where he couldn't even cast a simple water ball. So he asks them for intensive magic lessons so he can learn to use it. He explains that all his previous attempts at water magic have failed, and the twins have never even tried before, meaning they're starting from scratch. Goldo decides to help them, but Priestess feels that this alone isn't enough to be considered a proper reward yet. Takumi insists, however, that he doesn't want money. Molina then suggests another idea: give the villagers something they don't need but would be very useful. Seriously, she takes them to a place that looks like garbage. But before they can misunderstand, it becomes clear that what the villagers think is refuse is nothing but pearls or shellfish that have been discarded after eating ora. The priestess apologizes and says she's a little embarrassed to have brought them there. But she explains that humans are always strangely curious about these things. Takumi says it's no problem, and honestly, the joy on their faces is evident. So he doesn't waste the opportunity and stores everything in his inventory. Afterward, they have a luxurious dinner until it's time for the magic lessons. There, the old man begins to explain the basics of magic and some tricks, and Takumi is amazed by Elena's ability to grasp the instructions the first time. After teaching the basics, Gold out returns with Priestess and lets the twins practice all afternoon until a sudden, unexpected change occurs. Takumi notices the twins are frightened by a creature coming from the water. So he uses his detection abilities to see what it is. But he doesn't really need to, because just a second later, the creature emerges from the surface and is revealed to be a being made entirely of water. Moo. Meanwhile, we see Sil scolding Maya, the leader of Wendell's followers. Wendell, the ruler of water. Sil is furious because Maya was the one who first went to the mermaids and told them about Takumi and the twins' adventures. When he asks, "Why did you do that?" So Maya admits she just went to see how they were doing. And when she sensed the mermaids were facing a problem, she dropped a hint that there was a human who could help. As for why she didn't tell the ruler of water directly, it also reveals that the rulers have limited powers to intervene in the human world. Therefore, their best option was to turn to Takumi. Still, Sil says they're incurring a huge debt, and sending him there just to solve another problem would only add to his burden. No matter how simple the task, it's important to ask Takumi first. Sil only allowed this mission because it ultimately benefited the boy and the twins. Maya leaves, but Sil's anger only intensifies when she remembers that all this is happening because Wendell is lazy and isn't doing his job as ruler of water. Yet his complaints are interrupted when his assistant notices something strange. What's going on with Takumi? And who is that creature that seems to be about to be killed by the water beast out of her claws? Perhaps this is a bit of an exaggeration. We return to the twins and discover that the creature isn't made entirely of water, but rather a massive dragon that controls water. And what's worse, it's no ordinary giant monster. Upon appraising it, it's revealed to be a leviathan, a servant of the ruler of water, Petter. Although at first glance it appears to be about to attack them, it simply stops and stares at them, as if analyzing their existence. Barniakai. Suddenly the dragon speaks and asks, why are the children of the ruler of water versus the servant of the ruler of wind? This term is a great interest to Takumi. So he asks the dragon about the twins, revealing that they are the children of the ruler of water. Naturally, he's no fool, and at that very moment his suspicions are confirmed. Leviathan believes that these two are indeed the children of the ruler of water. He also admits that since they were born, he personally took responsibility for their protection and continued to do so for some time. However, as a dragon, he couldn't always stay in human lands to protect them. The beautiful thing is that fate reunited them, and so he proposes that he form a temporary pact with Takumi. This way, they will have a bond, but it won't be a master-servant relationship, but one where Takumi can call on him whenever needed, and he will decide for himself whether or not to come. Takumi agrees, and to seal the agreement, he names him Kaiser Heiser. The dragon also offers the twins the chance to stay with him, but the twins cling to Takumi, saying that he is like a father to them. Kaiser sees this and apologizes for scaring them. He then gives them some sigils that will help them pinpoint its location and escorts them to Mermaid Village. They return there only to say their final farewells. However, Priestess and Melina insist they stay a few more days. Takumi convinces them that they still have a long journey ahead. Nevertheless, the two girls agree and prepare delicious food for the journey. From there, they begin their ascent to the surface, fighting various enemies, and naturally, Alan and Elena handle almost all the work. That's not all, as the twins are also deftly shuttling through the monster's course as if they were doing their daily exercises. Suddenly, while they're still underwater, they spot a massive stone structure. The appearance of the place is so imposing that Takumi immediately thinks it must be the entrance to a dungeon or hidden ruin. He decides to ignore it and move on. But the true decision-makers have other plans, as the twins' curiosity far outweighs their size. They decide to venture into the adventure and see everything, no matter the cost and team. Slowly they enter the dungeon, and luckily they encounter no enemies. Instead, they reach a place filled with light, fresh air, and a teleportation device, which turns out to be the dungeon's starting point. Using his appraisal ability, Takumi discovers that this is dungeon number 53, Nimsazu Nami. It's a medium-level dungeon with 13 floors, and numerous teleportation devices scattered throughout, allowing for escape in case of sudden danger. Takumi wasn't particularly eager to enter this place, but he still asked the twins what they wanted to do. He figured they might be tired after such a long swim. Still, their desire to explore the new underwater dungeon prevails, and after eating the delicious food the two girls had prepared and packed in boxes for them, they begin their journey through the first floor. There, they encounter some poison frogs, so the twins take the opportunity to practice water magic. Surprisingly, they didn't seem so overly extraordinary the first time around, but rather had some difficulty hitting the target. By difficulty, I mean they didn't hit it on the first attempt, but did hit it on the second. Still, it's clear that these two children were no easy opponents even for the most powerful beings in the world. On the second floor, they found a secret door that led to a treasure room, filled with the strangest treasures imaginable. One chest full of shrimp, and another full of dried fish. A bird's fish. And who am I to judge? Although these might not seem like treasures to many, Takumi quickly began making his shopping list, thinking about how much delicious food he would prepare for the twins later. They found a hidden passage that led to the 6th floor. But since it was evening, they left it for the next day. Takumi prepared a great feast, and the twins ate and fell asleep. The next day, they continued their journey towards the 6th floor. As they progressed, they encountered more monsters. When Takumi noticed that the twins were becoming more comfortable using their magic, he decided to check their stats, only to discover that they had reached level 25, meaning he was now only 2 levels behind him. By now, we knew that Takumi possessed a fierce competitive spirit, but even that had its limits. So he decided that he needed to become stronger. Because no matter how blessed the twins are with fate or not, the idea that 2 5-year-olds are stronger than them is incredibly irritating. They then proceed to 10th floor, where they find a massive door that appears to lead to a boss room. But upon entering, they find nothing but a large number of low-level minnows, and they easily defeat them. It wasn't a waste, though, as they found a treasure chest containing a bracelet that was identical to one they already had, and it would be incredibly useful if they wanted to return later and bring a familiar with them. The twins decided to move on, but they needed to take advantage of this floor's teleportation device. So they returned to the beginning of the dungeon, then they continued their journey to the surface. They explored Coastal City a bit and ate delicious food and met new people. By the time they reached the blacksmith shop, Tubi had given them Leviathan scales and other strange materials to craft into personal ornaments and tools that might be useful later. They also passed a small church on the shore, and Takumi took the opportunity to briefly speak with Syl. He frankly revealed that he now knew the twins were the children of the ruler of water. He wasn't upset that Syl had hidden it, but he was curious about where the twins' father was and why he had left them to face danger alone. This question caused Syl great tension. It took a moment for him to calm down. Then he confirmed that yes, he knew the answer, but couldn't reveal all the details because he was still the ruler, and such revelations could land him in serious trouble. Toomey understood the reason for Syl's silence, and from Syl's reaction, as well as the fact that the twins had been left alone, he concludes that the ruler of water seems to be a very shallow person, seemingly unconcerned about what happened to them. At the same time, however, something resonates with him. He no longer expects this father to suddenly appear and try to take them away from him just because he wanted to lighten the mood. Syl congratulates him and announces that he has now officially become a retainer. This rank is granted when a ruler assigns someone an official duty for which they take responsibility, meaning the simple things he was doing until now don't count as true missions. Now his official duty is to raise and educate the twins as one of the ruler's representatives. In other words, his primary job is to be a good father, which he already was. Furthermore, this duty wasn't connected to wind, as you can imagine. This means that Takumi is now protected from other rulers as well. Even though he was still officially Syl's retainer, Takumi asked what he had to do to remain a retainer. The ruler explained that it wasn't much. He simply had to continue caring for the twins as he had always done. And if that wasn't enough, the ruler of fire, Solomon, had also heard stories of his accomplishments and decided to send him some small gifts. The reason was that the Japanese recipes he had shared with others had allowed the world to develop the Kwanzan at an unprecedented pace, and this fell under the ruler of fire's domain, a line. As a token of gratitude, he granted him fire magic abilities and promised to bring him a contract with a new magical beast. After saying goodbye, Takumi went in search of a hotel where they could spend the night. Ciel was quite alert, as he naturally knew exactly where Alan and Elena's true father was. He entered into a relationship with a woman from scoundrel Atia. Then when she was pregnant with twins, he left her and disappeared, and now it's unknown where and with whom he's spending his time. To be honest, this wasn't a secret in the ruler's world, and he could have told them without getting into trouble. But he felt it wouldn't be appropriate to reveal the true father's identity to the father who was actually responsible for the twins, while the real father was living his life as he pleased. At that very moment, the ruler of fire appears, having heard everything. Yet he simply tells Ciel how excited he is about the beast he sent to Takumi. This worries Ciel a bit, as Ciel was known for his over-excitement when his enthusiasm grew. The proof of this quickly becomes apparent the next day. While Takumi and the twins are playing on the noise floor, they found a huge fire dragon that was twice its normal size, and it was clear that this was their new beast. Takumi named it Victor, and the surprise was that even in chibi form, it remained the same, Scoundrel the Animus Inumus. Yet the scoundrel was incredibly adorable, so they played with it for a while. Meanwhile, Victor wandered off and returned with a woman's leg. At that moment, Takumi went into absolute panic, convinced that he would now have to hide from the police. But it turned out that the woman was still alive, just trapped in a deep sleep. When he examined her vitals, he discovered that her name was Viviani, and she was an incredibly powerful vampire demon. The level 54. Twins were a bit startled, but Takumi calms them down and decides to remain composed, as losing control of the situation could lead to chaos. Naturally, Viviani doesn't attack first, instead carefully observing each movement as if testing them. Takumi begins to analyze the situation. Viviani's level was much higher than theirs, but with her strategy, water magic, fire magic, and familiarity, there was still a chance. At that very moment, the entire atmosphere changes, as the twins feel the genuine excitement of facing a high-level opponent for the first time, and they begin planning. They divide roles. Joel will monitor Victor's movements. Alan will control water magic. Elena will provide physical support, while Takumi will focus on advanced magical attacks. In those moments, Takumi felt genuine pride, as these two children were not just descendants of the ruler of water, but could stand together and face even far stronger enemies. The problem was, he didn't know how to wake her up. So Takumi decided to go about his day normally and began preparing lunch, as if telling himself, if she won't wake toward food, perhaps she will wake to food. This solution proved effective, as Demoness woke up ravenously hungry at the smell of food, as if her hunger had awakened. It was her hunger that had awakened her, not her. Takumi offered her some food, and she ate it with uncanny speed. After calming down a bit, she began to introduce herself. She explained that she was a spy on a secret mission, disguised as a maid. She was investigating a noble family that was facing strange problems. The problem was that she had run out of supplies while working, so she had to resort to some tricks and dubious methods. She began telling strange and convoluted stories, sometimes even rambling. But the twins were thoroughly enjoying it, as for the first time they were hearing stories from someone whose life was filled with adventures completely different from their own. Finally, the strange girl got up and started to leave. But as she was leaving, she asked Takumi what his relationship was to the twins. Was he their father or older brother? Takumi calmly replied that he considered himself their older brother. This question caught the twins' attention, as they basically didn't understand the meaning of the word father. So they looked at Takumi curiously and asked him about it. Tumi understood the meaning of her question and realized that they still didn't even know the meaning of family because until recently, they had lived alone in the middle of the forest, relying only on each other. So he sat down and slowly explained that family means the people who protect you, care for you, and stick by you no matter what. He didn't go into too many intricate details, but finally, with a quiet smile, he said that they were family now, and that was what mattered most. That one sentence was enough to make the twins smile and cuddle up closer to him, as if for the first time they were experiencing true stability. The next day, they decided to visit the Adventurers Guild in New City. As soon as they entered, the receptionist was completely stunned. When she saw that Takumi was a rank, she stared at the card repeatedly as if in disbelief. And most importantly, when they heard about the discovery of the shared dungeon, the atmosphere in the guild completely turned upside down. The receptionist became extremely excited and kept asking Takumi every little detail. Finally, Takumi told her the whole story. From the beginning, when they found the entrance, and then their first exploration of Flores, they explained that the new city was named Bahia, a very active coastal city, bustling with movement, commerce, and tourism. Through Isaac's recommendation, they met Mr. Reisner, his older brother. He welcomed them warmly, having already heard of them from Isaac. When Takumi told him about discovering the dungeon, the man became extremely excited, as the discovery of a new dungeon in his area could transform the entire city's economy. In this world, dungeons are considered true treasures, attracting adventurers from all over. This means more visitors and more business for hotels, restaurants, and merchants. And even without modern communication, news travels terrifyingly fast in this world, especially among adventurers. But Takumi still preferred to stay out of the limelight, so he asked Reisner not to include his name or the twins' names in official reports. Reisner, respecting his wishes, agreed. However, he explained that the reports that would eventually reach the king might contain full details, as it was an administrative procedure that needed to be followed. Things calmed down a bit when Reisner invited them to lunch at his home. There they met his wife, Olivia, a very gentle and warm welcome. They also met his two young twin children, Theodore and Lettice, who were very adorable, as expected, and nuked. Takumi's twins were overjoyed, because it was the first time they had the chance to meet children their own age and interact naturally. Although they were very shy at first, they were very happy. So much so that they hid behind Takumi and discreetly peeked at them. Their look was so innocent that no one could imagine these two children possessing powers that could intimidate even professional adventurers. Takumi gently approached and explained that the twins get nervous when they meet someone for the first time. Theodore and Lettice understood the situation and began talking to them slowly and without pressure. Gradually, the atmosphere warmed up, especially once everyone was seated at the table. Takumi took the opportunity and brought out a special dessert. The twins loved his own original recipe, slime jelly. The dessert was colorful, transparent, and attractively shimmering, and its taste was light and refreshing. As soon as the Reisner children tasted, their eyes lit up, and they immediately asked Takumi how he made it. The food and dessert quickly broke down the barrier of shyness, and soon the four children were playing together in the garden. They were trying simple games and laughing heartily. Takumi watched them from afar, feeling a strange sense of relief, as if he were catching a glimpse of the simple life that might have been if things had gone differently. As they played, the twins slowly began to open their hearts, trying to interact with children their own age for the first time, and this taught them simple but vital things like sharing, cooperating, and laughing without fear or caution. Takumi smiled quietly at the scene. He felt that all the fatigue and danger he had endured were worth this moment to see the twins live a normal life, even if only for a short while. This surprised the nobleman, because although the slime material wasn't poisonous, no one in the world had ever thought of making candy from it. Reisner looked at it with the eyes of a skilled merchant, immediately grasped the idea, and decided to buy the recipe for a very respectable amount. Not only that, but he also ordered his servants to prepare a dedicated space and began seriously considering a slime farm project. Something like a poultry farm, but with jelly instead of eggs. Oh, honestly, the man looked like he could take over the entire market if he wanted to, but he preferred to take things slowly. Anyway, Reisner offered them a room in his manor for the duration of their stay, and even asked Takumi for permission to let his own children play with the twins. Oh, naturally, Takumi agreed without hesitation. The days that followed were beautiful, filled with games, laughter, and caring for 4 children. Oh, they explored the city together, visiting shops, trying new foods, and playing in the open squares. Looking at them from afar, no one could have ever imagined that these children could be stronger than professional adventurers. But that peaceful atmosphere changed a bit when Reisner decided to introduce them to one of the city's most important merchants. As soon as Takumi saw him, he noticed a familiar emblem on his clothing. Initially, he didn't pay much attention, but after a few moments, he remembered that it was the same symbol he'd seen on the ship that had sunk near Mermaid Village. Takumi discreetly asked him, about it, without mentioning mermaids. The merchant confirmed that one of his ships had recently sunk at sea. Fortunately, all the crew members had survived. But the loss was huge and would have landed the company in serious legal trouble. Takumi, who always avoided drawing attention to himself, found himself in an awkward position again. After some hesitation and embarrassment, he quietly told the merchant that he was the one who had brought the ship back. The man froze in place because the ship had sunk far offshore, in a place where no one could easily reach it. Yet Takumi explained it as if it were a very normal thing. Without much preamble, Takumi told him that he could return the ship with everything intact, and that he didn't know if the cargo was still usable. So the merchant would have to decide for himself whether it was in good condition or not. At that point, the merchant's eyes lit up almost menacingly, so much so that Reisner himself asked in surprise, "What would you ask for in return for all this?" Takumi was nervous, as he had never intended to ask for anything. But in the world of nobles and merchants, people thought differently, and it seemed unlikely that anyone would give up such a large item without compensation. Nevertheless, Takumi returned the ship without asking for anything. The merchant thanked him warmly and explained that inside the ship was an extremely rare fairy gem, which he had completely lost hope of recovering. But with the ship's return, he was able to recover all his losses. This situation confused the twins, as they couldn't understand why someone would return something to its owner without asking for payment. Takumi seized the opportunity and taught them a valuable lesson. At least stealing is wrong, and anything found that doesn't belong to them should be returned to its owner, no matter how small. Although Takumi hadn't asked for anything, the merchant insisted on rewarding him and offered him a full tour of his company's products. The tour included rare items, most notably coffee, a true treasure for caffeine lovers, urakas. He also gifted him a collection of luxury spices. At this point, Takumi announced that he would prepare dinner himself, which would be a mandish curry. The result was, naturally, as expected. Everyone in the manor was completely shocked by the taste of the food. Even the chef himself nearly fell to his knees before Takumi, begging him to become his apprentice. Takumi laughed and declared that he was an adventurer. He's not a chef, and all he knows are a few recipes from his homeland. The same thing happened with the new baker, who was amazed by the strange recipes and willing to do anything to use them. After a while, Takumi began to feel a little guilty about leaving his familiars alone for so long, so he decided to take them for a walk that afternoon. But that peaceful walk soon turned upside down when he encountered a group of thugs who intended to kill him, kidnap the children, and sell them on the black market. Naturally, the battle was decided as soon as it began. The thugs were swiftly defeated. Takumi didn't stop there, but tracked them to their hideout, eliminating the rest of the gang as well, freeing the kidnapped women, and taking all the money they had hidden. He then collected the pendants and equipment he had ordered from the blacksmith, as he needed them to explore the rest of the dungeon. After completing this task and requesting new bracelets for his familiars from the mermaid, he returned to the place where he began unlocking more and more floors. Naturally, this led to new and constant battles, and the question was, could he lose? On the contrary, he progressed with relative ease, and even when caught in traps, he escaped with only minor difficulty, as if fate itself was on his side. When he finally reached the boss chamber, it turned out that the boss was none other than a small kraken. And if it was small, what would a larger one be like? Well, they faced a monster whose tentacles regenerated after almost every attack. This made it seem like an invincible enemy, but it turned out it had a weakness. It had to be attacked with an overwhelming number of executive attacks to prevent it from regenerating limbs. And that's exactly what they did. Each member of the team exerted their full strength in the final assault, combining their various elements. Thus, they defeated the boss and claimed the treasure, a powerful sword charged with fire magic. Sometime later, when they returned to Risner Manor, Alan and Elena were recounting every detail of their latest adventure to their new friends. Strangely, they encountered Robin and Isaac there, who had come to escort them to the capital to meet the king, Ekumato. Despite his efforts to remain unnoticed, Takumi was still the hero of the story, having made his name known through his achievements within the palace. Initially, he wasn't very fond of the idea of meeting the King of Guardia, knowing that dealing with someone with such a power could bring additional trouble. But he couldn't refuse. After the twins confirmed they had no problem, he agreed. So Elaine and Elena enjoyed their last days in the Vale with their new friends. Meanwhile, Takumi had a very emotional moment during a conversation with Robin, Isaac, and Risner, telling him that although they weren't related by blood, the family he had formed with the twins was one of the most beautiful families they had ever seen. Gradually, Takumi began to remember everything he had gone through with Elaine and Elena over the past few months, and tears welled up in his eyes as he realized that just as he had protected them and perhaps saved them from a terrifying pet, they had also completely changed his life. The next day, it was finally time to leave for the capital. Although the twins initially insisted that they stay behind so as not to be separated from their new friends, they realized that the alternative would mean separation to Takumi, and he would never allow that to happen. So began their journey to the capital, where new challenges and even greater things awaited them. This marks the end of the story's adventures. We hope you enjoyed and appreciated it. If you want a second season, let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like button before leaving. To support us, subscribe to the channel and follow more episodes as they come. Activate the notification bell too, to receive notifications of every new episode release.